right, breaking news here. The Supreme Court has upheld the decision of the president to suspend the elected government of Rivers State at the time it was suspended. This, I don't really know what to say. Let me start with Philip. First of all, I'm going to start with you. I mean, the Supreme Court have upheld the fact that they suspended the Fubara legally. Do you agree with that?
Well, the Supreme Court has taken a decision. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the land, and its decision is final. And this is going to go down in our jurisprudence that there are new precedents that the president has the power to suspend elected officials in the state. But again, you see, we have to look at the judgment as it were. There were the judgment, and there were dissenting voices, and the judgment is very clumsy because
there's only one dissenting voice.
Yeah, but the judgment is a clumsy judgment because the lead judge did in his opening statement that he struck out the case on want of jurisdiction, or the case there were not enough ground for the plaintiff to come to court. On another hand, he heard the case on its merits, and on another hand, he dismissed the case, which means the case never came to the Supreme Court. So this is a very trying time for the judiciary, because I don't know how it's going to look like in our jurisprudence. Which of them are we going to take? Is it the judge? Is it the judgment on the merits,
exactly,
or the one they said they struck out the case because there were not enough ground for the plaintiff to come to court, or the dismissal? So you see, I cannot really speak on it whether the Supreme Court, yes, were they right to say that the president has power or not, because the judgment itself is clumsy. I think I need time to digest the judgment to know what to say about the judgment that had just been given.
Okay, for a judgment has been given, I mean, on three phases, like you just explained to us. This. Which one should we hold on to?
The judgment of the Supreme Court is final. There is nothing we can do in not making it to be law other than going back to our laws, constitution, or whatever to amend it. That is that. We can't do anything about that. But our voices are not final because we continue to speak on it. After all, there is one dissenting voice, and we queue ourselves behind that dissenting voice, which is Justice Justice Obande Obuya, who dissented. Justice Obande said that although the president could declare a state of emergency, the president could not use such power as a tool to suspend state elected officials, including governors, deputy governors, and member of parliament. Now, look at Justice Idri, the late justice. Yes. The justice. Yeah, he said in part of the judgment where he upheld it, he said that the section 305 that gave the president power to declare state of emergency was not very specific about what the president should do with the elected officials. But we have a question here. We have a very, very serious question here. He said section 305 was not specific on the nature of the extraordinary measures that the president could use, thereby granting the president the discretion on how to go about it. Now, we have a specific, we have a section 305 here that was not specific about what the president could do with the governors or whatever. But we have section 188 from the same constitution that is specific about how governors should be removed from office. So now, the discretion of the president on how not to deal with elected officials is, Supreme Court is telling us that overrides. So give us the two that overrides the section 188, which is specific on how governors should be removed from office. So the discretion of the president is higher in this case, because whatever the president chooses to do with the elected governor, whether to remain or not to remain, is now higher than the specific provision of section 188 on how elected governors should be removed from office. You see, I stand with Justice Obande Obuya. And I'm so sure many people stand with that too. We need to look at the judgment to also know whether Supreme Court also said that it is okay to use voice vote to arrive at two-third majority. Because two-third, when you say two-third majority, it shows that numbers of persons will be counted. So how they counted the voice, I don't know. Before we look at the details of the judgment.
I want us to educate our viewers, because most Nigerians, what we need now is knowledge. Section 188 tells us that two ways of a governor leaving office, by impeachment, and by death,
or resignation.
Yeah, that's the two ways that it tells us. Now, the president's discretion, is it higher than the constitutional provision?
Specific provision.
You see, the question is very simple. You know, when Section 188 did spell out how a governor could be removed from office. But Section 305 is dealing on a state of emergency when there are crises. So when Section 305 comes into operation, to the best of my knowledge, Section 108 cannot be referred to in this matter. But the question here is whether the section, because what he said, which I agree with, since the section is silent on the action of the president when a state of emergency is in place, does that section give the president the right to suspend the elected official? That's the question in our lips. But don't forget that when there's emergency, what is emergency? Emergency means that everything that is suspended.
Emergency is emergency.
Emergency. Yes. So that particular section is also suspended as regard that enclave.
That's 305.
Yes, 305 supersede 188 when there's emergency in your state.
Okay, so let me dwell. First of all, before you go further, let me dwell on Justice Obande Ogunya's what he said. But the other day was said that you cannot remove it as a political tool. Elected officials.
That's where I'm going. You see, Justice Obande has made it very clear that even though there's a state of emergency that now overrides Section 188, it does not give you the right to suspend the elected official.
Let me tell you,
that is why this judgment, that's why I said is clumsy, because that's why the man is not even sure of himself. At some breath said he's talking out the case, at one breath said he's dismissing the case, at another breath said he's hearing the case on its merit and deciding on it. You see, we do not even know at what point they hear this matter before they even reach judgment.
Let me also take Philip slightly on what if the lead justice admitted that Section 305 was not specific on the nature of the extraordinary measures. Let me tell you, we have always said something. Politics is not an invention in Nigeria. We have a kind of presidential system. When we look up to places like America, for example, how they practice this thing, we didn't fall from sky. State of emergency doesn't have to be only political in nature. It could be flood. It means the inability of the state government to be able to apply law and order, to ensure that there's law and order. In most cases, actually, it is expected that the governor of the state is the one that is to call the president and say, we need help. We are unable to carry out our functions of ensuring that there is law and order in the state. Do you understand? It doesn't have to be political fight or whatever. It could be flood, it could be earthquake, it could be when people are running helter-skelter. Sorry to say, I don't know if you witnessed event of January 27, 2002. I'm not sure of the date, where there was a bomb blast in Ikeja cantonment. There was disorder. If you saw what happened that day, we were running on to first stack. We don't know what was happening. I was in Ajawa State Airport Road, that everywhere was shaking. We don't know what's happening. People were just moving. That is loss of law and order. You need the presidential power, to activate the emergency system so as to restore law and order. It doesn't always have to be political fight. It could be earthquake. It could be earthquake. It could be anything. Fire. It could be fire. It could be flood. So I did not think that restoration of law and order anticipated the removal of governor, because governor was not the cause of the issue. So it's the inability to function. You understand? And our ability to be able to keep the law and order. And that is why the judgment is trying to say limited time. What is the limited time? let me tell you, the essence of law in most cases is to remove ambiguity, is to be specific. And when it's not specific, that which is not specific should not override that which is specific.
Philip, your last statement.
You see, the law itself also envisages that there are times that there could be ambiguity. And when there are ambiguity, the law allows the judges to apply what we call the golden rule or the mischief rules to interpret the law. Okay? Now, I am not in entitlement with the judgment in any way. But what I am saying here is the Section 305, if it is followed properly the way it should follow, the president may have the right, and that there will be conditions. Like
now if you look at what Obande said, Justice Obande said, he said the president has a right, but the president doesn't have the power
to suspend the elected. That's where I'm going.
You see, that's where the thing is.
Elected government. So how if the president does, see, the question now is this: we must open our mind. If the president does not have the power to suspend the elected official, how will there be two governments at the same time?
Okay, so this is how it's done. So that's the question. That's what Okafor is saying.
Yes,
there is emergency.
Yes,
as a result of it doesn't have to be rulership. Yes. It could be emergency and natural disaster.
Natural disaster.
That's what I'm saying. Now, it could be natural federal might or agent, because every department and the federal
the only reason the president is declaring his state of emergency is to restore law and order. Simple. That is the only reason.
And it's true for us, through the military. That it does
the government does not have.
You cannot have two governments at the same time in one place. So the only reason why you say the state of emergency could be natural disaster, it could be anything. It depends on what lead to the state of emergency. So that will lead to the action of the president.
That's what I'm telling you.
If what lead to the state of emergency is political in nature and is chaotic, the president may remove the elected official.
The removal is sacrosanct.
That's his position.
That's position. No, I'm trying to say something.
Yes.
If the president is coming, like you said, federal power supersedes that of the local power. If for example, he's firefighter, the same has firefighter capabilities.
Can I tell you something? How are the police working now in the state?
As federal
police. Actually, let me tell you, why you say you can't have two government in the place, that is fallacy.
Yes.
Because we have 3 tiers of government, and all of them are working in any square inch of Nigeria all at the same time. Federal government is working here right now. FCT government is working here right now. AMA government is working here right now. All of them have different level of capacity. When that of the state was not able to handle what is happening, the federal might move in to restore law and order. That's what Justice Obande is saying, that does not anticipate suspending election officials who has a way specifically stated in the constitution of how they may be removed. If the constitution anticipated that, after including that resignation, death, or impeachment, it cannot say, or when a president in declared state of emergency, it would have included and counted as the way a governor might be removed.
Well, it is not included. We don't have the time.
Before you don't have the time, whether we like it or not, today as at today in Nigeria today, it has been and it is.
That's a conquest. That's not analysis. That's a conquest mentality. That's conquest mentality.
What Philip said from the beginning was that every judgment sounds like a precedent, which every other judgment can start on. But this one that we have right now doesn't.